Hello, hello. Are we on? It's Monifa with their transit for the new moon in Sagittarius. So we are talking about gene keys. We're talking a little bit about quantum human design. I just like to bring that in, that lens of human design, so that we're not forgetting all the parts that bring everything together. I think that's the important part of human design, how all the functions work together as a whole. It's obviously in gene keys. It's just that uh, there's so much essential information, that quintessence of each archetype and vibration, that what kind of draws you it deeper, 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 deeper. And so I like to use quantum human design to kind of come out to top level and start applying it to life and business and what I'm up to, and hopefully what you're up to. Hopefully if you're not about business, you're about a large creative project, or your family, or just what you're bringing into the world in your daily beingness, right? So that's what we like to dive into here. So for the new moon in Sagittarius, which was yesterday or the evening of the night before, depending on where you are in the world, in the gate of 9 of human design, that is convergence. And in Gene Keys, that is the shadow of inertia, the gift of determination, and the city of invincibility. All righty. So, what I love about this is that we're diving into what makes us tick. It's the gate is in the sacral center, and that is where our engine is. That is where we get the energy to do any of the things. And so if we're not tapped in there, it can be hard to find that motivation. Things can feel kind of meh. So even if you don't have this energy, usually this is our opportunity. We're getting this as a sensed understanding from the moon energy itself, right? And so we're taking these opportunities so that we can help ourselves be more supported in whatever we're doing in the world, right? So this is also in the ring of light and the channel of stability for those who track those things. I like to talk about them every now and again because again, they're the gene keys way of understanding how it's incorporated into the body and the systems of the human, right? So it's nice to go there sometimes. This is one of those days I wish I'd warmed up a little. I haven't spoken much today. So let's think about that. Let's start with the gene keys. The shadow of inertia is this feeling that we're being just inundated with details, right? It's the being a victim to the details. And that's how Richard Rudd describes it. And that when we are just only living into the small I have to's of the daily tasks and what I have to do for the day, and it feels bogged down and low energy, it's because it's literally sapping your life force and robbing you of your enthusiasm, if that's the lens and the experience we're having in our body, right? And so it can also help you understand why you might move into those modes of meh, which is what I call them. I talk about in my course, the meh, like what it means to be meh. And it's basically you're not too happy, you're not too sad, don't really care. You can easily confuse this for satisfaction, and I have. So that's why I bring it up. So yeah, so if we're confusing it for satisfaction, the difference is in satisfaction, you still feel like you can do more. You feel like you have more energy to do more things. And you don't, and often in that satisfaction, there's no have tos. Again, you're not in that, it's heavy, I've got to do things state, right? It's more of a, ooh, if I decide to do this thing, I wonder what will happen, right? So everybody's words are a little different. And so how we live into that experience of that energy for ourselves, but essentially that, right? And so if your activities are leaving you cold or bored, Richard was talking to us here about, is basically meaning that you're in the wrong activity. And I don't like to always think of it as the wrong activity. I just think that sometimes we're in an activity that we're not recognizing as part of the path. And so because we have not made that connection to the larger dream, which he does talk about, then that's why it feels like it's sapping our life force. And if you're allowing things to keep being in that perspective, then we are allowing that life force to be sapped, and that feeling that the details, our life is taming you to what you have to do instead of what you're here to and what you live for, right? And so the difference is, and it's not that we're not looking at details anymore when we're moving into the other one, is that when we are looking into it, that is focused on something beautiful or practical. So he talks about this idea of what truly matters to you is that which is beautiful. That's why beauty is in the eye of the beholder, because your beauty may not look like somebody else's beauty, right? And so if we're not able to classify it in what is beautiful or practical, what is practical basically means that it's serving the function of beauty, essentially. It's this like the surface structure to the beautiful wonder, right? And so if it's not one of those two things, beauty or supporting beauty, then it can't be that meaningful to you and the overall life purpose. What is your heart desiring, which is essentially your life purpose? It's here to work with the instrumentation you got in your body. Again, why I like to reference the body chart. It's the way you're set up. And that is what drives you, motivates you, and gives you energy, that which gives you energy. So if you have not seen the Voice in Your Vision Summit yet, you still have a few hours. You have 9 hours or so, right? There's so many great speakers. You can get a lot of them in. A lot of the interviews are between 30, 40 minutes, not long at all. If you hang around for the after we talk about it, we integrate, we tell each other our ahas. And when we're doing that, you actually get more nuggets in there. But you don't have to watch all the live parts, you know, you can whittle it down. One that I'm recommending is Dr. Sandra Lewis, because we talk essentially about how do we find the actions that are giving us energy instead of taking it away. And how do we align our actions so that we're getting energy from what we're doing instead of like solely seeping energy and getting more and more tired. So we're too far focused on the future. These are some indicators, right? Too far focused on the future instead of what's right in front of you or where you are, then that can cause that to happen. And it develops a sense of reluctance to move out of your pattern. And this is the thing, like the more that that inner drive is our motivator for each doing this, the more things are attracted to us, the more we get our magnetic and manifestation effects, right? And so that's what we want more of, okay? In the repressive side of this energy and the gene keys, he talks about it being reluctant. It's a reluctance to move out of your patterns. And this is the hard part for some of these is that they're not all function the same. Not energy, all energy functions the same. That's why we archetype it, right? So we can recognize the different ways it's moving. And in this one, it just doesn't. It's nobody's fault that you're reluctant to move out of pattern. You can't fix being reluctant to move out of the pattern. It's because it's not a conscious choice. So we'll talk about how we're going to break out in a second, but that's just the truth of it if you're in that shadow. So if we can be aware of it, if we can step out of it, that's a good clue right there. It's like you can step out of it and make a choice from a different place. It doesn't always have to make sense. And that's one of the keys to a lot of the things of life is that we're always looking for a way to make it make sense before we even know how to do anything about it. We don't know enough to make the right choices a lot of times. So The reactive side, which is the reactive side, is when we're acting out in this energy, the archetypal energy is diverted. So this is when we are just doing whatever just to get rid of the energy, or just like, I'm being active, so it should produce something, but it's more of an anger, or fear, or frustration. And basically, you can't find a groove, you can't find a pattern, right? You can't find anything that will make it feel like you're making progress in any one direction. You just keep doing things, and it just feels like you're spinning your wheel, spinning out of control, and not sure how long you can keep this up, that kind of feeling. So how do we get out? Right? So basically is that we have the bigger vision, and that we're matching every action to that vision. So if you've watched our Verve and Vision podcast, we talked about a couple books that will help you understand this concept. The One Thing was the last one, and I highly recommend. And we have a lot of notes on planning based on The One Thing. And then there's another one, The Big Leap. The Big Leap was also really good. It's also going to give you a sense of like where are we making our decisions from, and how does that shift our ability to impact things. So that's why I labeled this new moon energy as that, because that's the how can we break out. So Richard Rudd rarely uses like violence to depict things, but he does here. He says the only way to get out of that inertia is to punch out of the field. So it's a literal just drive of energy in one direction, and it's not really anything that you have no energy left usually to make a better choice and be more mindful, like all these things that we think that there's, the high and minded and those that are in the know can always have access to. It's just not always true, right? So how do we do it? It's like we find something that's just supremely willful. It doesn't have to be meaningful. It doesn't have to be even purposeful at this point. You're just punching out based on the fact that you decided, right? And so anytime you're having to, if you've noticed a field of inertia that's been happening for a while, or we just now notice, oh my gosh, I think I've been in a field of inertia for like the last 5 years, right? Then you may have to wait till like what I call another day. So another end of the cycle. So any cycle that feels like it moved through, so that maybe in a week for you, if you've slowed down that much, and that I get it, I've been there. So if you slow down that much, it may mean a week, it may mean 2 weeks. How? But you have to like basically you have to out rest the inertia. And when that happens, you can drop into this space where it doesn't, you just find a focal point, and it doesn't, again, have to be meaningful. It just can be like, I like red. I'm going to get red yarn. And you might not even have a plan to use it or whatever, but it gets you out of the field. Now, if you always get red yarn and it's just one of those busy actions that you do, it doesn't quite count, right? We need something new, and it needs to be a huge act of will, right? And so, yeah, so, and the best way to punch out how I think of that vocally, right? So you jump like in when you are singing, if you're really going to a high note, if you're getting like a lot of energy for really loud sounds, you come in to go out, right? So it's almost like the spring action. You have to push down on the spring to pop out, right? And so the moving in and like moving into that place where you just have enough tension that you're creating force in one direction, so it just automatically pushes you in the next direction when you let go. And so it's a feeling more than anything. So you really can just pick anything to have that feeling around. And usually life is providing you those things. You just stop listening to them, right? So it's just a matter of deciding the one that you feel more activated by, maybe. If you're worried that that punch out will injure your life and or somebody else, then pick something less consequential. Just a little recommendation there. I'm going really deep into this. I did not plan on that. So yeah, and then the power of determination. So how does this actually live when we're in the function of the gift, right? Is every intentional act it's a magical act. This is a quote from Aleister Crowley. And it's just the most potent statement I found about the gift. And that's that determination. Determination means that I am determined to move out of this inertia. Like, even if it just means that I've decided to go buy a ball of yarn, or I decided to go make a French meal that I've never made before. I'm determined to make it happen. And then you just, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons, all the mind of why I can't, what's not going to allow me, da, 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 punch like all the way in, and then poof, let it bounce out into a whole new level of energy. And so the city's invincibility, basically, that you have gone so deep, so deep, that you are so clear on the big and the small that there's nothing that can stop you. And Richard Rudd talks about this as the inner space that allows us to see the final frontier, because we've been to the outer space. So what does the inner space look like, right? Not all of us, right? But we have seen pictures, nothing else. So let's bring this into like functional ideas. And we're going to go all the way to, what does it look like when we put content up on our business, right? That's like, I like to go big and deep, and then I like to go narrow, not narrow, but like into that place where it's going to actually change something in my now life. That's what I like about this information. So Karen Curry Parker talks about the challenge in convergence. That's the gate name in the quantum human design for the human design. Yeah. So challenge, that point of challenge and convergence, is not being able to focus on the right things, not being able to see the trees for the forest, right? So being able to do both is the goal. You see the trees, see the forest. Okay, what is the tree that I'm looking for? Now that I know, okay, this is the forest, and now this is why I'm going into the forest, is for that tree, right? Optimally, this is about seeing big picture and then choosing where to apply our attention. So hopefully that visual gave you some ideas. And the unbalanced way is that we have so many options that we don't know where to start, or that we can't see what's essential to where to start, right? So that's when we like, I don't know, I've got so many things on my list, I don't know where to begin, right? And we are all human. We all have all had this experience, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so the contemplation, what can help you, what to think about. And this is Karen Curry Parker's contemplation, and then the affirmation I'm going to give you in a second, which is, what do I need to focus on? Right? A lot of times you're saying, I don't know what to focus on. I don't know. Does not help your brain. Your brain is like, I don't know what that means. I can't do nothing about that. If you say, find me what I need to focus on, the brain will go to work for you instead of against you. Okay, so that's the difference. And it sounds like a simple thing, but it makes a big difference when especially when you're spinning, right? In those moments. So the next question is my physical environment supporting staying focused? So a lot of times, because I have so many ideas, so many projects, a lot of my clients are coming in, or I might have a meeting with another business partner or something like this. So much is going on that you have all the things for all the things up and in your visuals. Now, for people that can focus really well, that may not be a problem. But me, like, as soon as I see something, I start having ideas around it. So if I have tabs up for 10 different projects, my brain will go from each project, why it's important to me, what I want to do about it, what's next, for every project. And it gets really overwhelming, and then you can get super stuck super fast. So I've learned to use like a feature called Toby, and I just if, do my best to get rid of all the tabs. And I have an organizational process that I have started to use as well with that I'm going to be starting to teach in 2025. So you might want to hang out to hear about my brand new organizational process for people who are maybe creative, innovative thinkers that tend to have evolutionary thinking within one task. So it can cause problems when you're actually trying to build structures, when you're actually trying to organize things, and actually trying to find a plan that works for a specific amount of time. It can get complicated really quick if your brain keeps up, stepping up leveling everything that you look at, right? Or down leveling. So if we're just in a place where we're spiraling downward, we need something that will stop us, right? It goes both ways. That's the function and, the gift and the curse, so to speak. So on the affirmation, I place my focus and attention on the details that support my creative manifestation. I am clear. I'm just like gonna sit with that. I feel like that should be a mantra. I am clear, right? I should just be a place we go to. That's what I do is I learn to I help people learn how to entrain vibrational states. And so that you're not always like, it must be nice to be able to be calm, right? It must be nice to not be afraid of everything, right? Like instead of being in that place, or you're just really annoyed with other people that are able to do that, that we can do it for ourselves. Okay. If you haven't heard about the gifts, we have this is the last day to get $77. The Voicing Your Vision Summit for $77 is the last day to get Voicing Your Visions Summit package with Vocal Alchemy for the discounted rate. It's the early bird rate. It will go away on December 18th. Okay. I don't usually give you all that date, but I'll go ahead and tell you it's going away. And when I say it's going away, I don't mean like maybe it's going away. I mean like literally won't take that price anymore. Now you can pay me the full price, which is the full price will be available until we start our 2025 live cohort on 20 and in February of 2025. So look out for that if you feel like you have to wait for the next year for that to be a possibility for you. Okay. All right. 3 things to receive in this new moon, Sagittarius. So this one was easy. I don't know why it was so easy for me, but to find the 3 things, these are like no brainers for me. Receive your heart's desire, right? So that potent magnetic energy is about the hearts that gets torqued and that vortex when it gets excited about what it's here for in this now body, right? And so when it gets excited like that, it's like my heart has a desire and it is aligned with my being if we're connected. Okay. I don't know how people do, we do amazing things like go so far into our heart that we no longer have a function or of understanding of how our body is incorporated into that, how to incorporate our traits and our desires and our likes and our dislikes and let it feed the engine instead of letting it take the energy out, right? And if the heart's just out there by itself, it just gets stomped on, like it needs the structure of the body. There's a reason why we have an ego. There's a reason why we have an identity, not to be beholden to it, but to use it as a tool to function within this now 3D reality, right? So that's why I like astrology, not so it can tell me who I am, but tell me how energy moves so I can recognize it and work it with my ninja DNA powers, right? So number 2, second thing to receive this new moon Sagittarius is an ease with your choice of focus. So for me, this is about, it makes total sense in my head. I'm trying to, I just recognize that wasn't probably proper English. So yeah, so where you're choosing to focus, let it be easy. And that's kind of the hard, like the hard and the easy part, the hard part that we make hard. That can be easy, which is that We are often choosing points so far in the future. Remember what Richard Rudd said, we're often choosing points so far in the future that we can't, it doesn't feel easy. It feels unknown and scary and um, a thousand things to figure out in order to figure out the last part, right? That's not easy. So find your focus closer to just now felt truth, and it'll be easier. And that doesn't mean you have to let go of the future possibility. It means that let's find that closer version. And then if you can find the closer version, then the future possibility should then light up. It will no longer feel like this huge responsibility of have tos. Okay. Number three, receive greater energy. Right. So as soon as we allow ourselves to move into that point of ease, which is essentially our clear now selves, then the energy comes with that. So that's what we're talking about, how if we're focusing on just the details as apart from who we be, so as apart from our big vision of why we're here on the planet, or apart from the knowingness of how we are best serving in our energy. And that does not mean that you have to do anything about that. That just means that you have to be more aware of being that. That's where the joy comes from. That's where the energy comes from. And if we know that we're already just in our beingness, that energy is serving this world, and that's literally all you have to do about that, if that's all you decide to do, can you breathe with that? I feel like so much lighter when I remind myself of that truth. It is a truth. All right. We're already breathing carbon dioxide for the trees, and they're happy with that. So the rest of us can be as well. And whether we acknowledge it or recognize it, each and every person on this planet is housing the energy we need to move forward. And so the more we appreciate that in ourselves, the more we'll see that in others, and vice versa. Another reason why I love archetypes, because now we can understand like why people be like that. If they're in that shadow energy, you're just like, why? How can they even try? Like, how can they even live with themselves to da 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 da? Right? You like it's so much easier to love people if you understand like kind of the traps that come with their genius. And we all have them. And the more we recognize that, the more we can give each other grace about that. So, three content ideas for this new moon Sagittarius. I like to do them in 2 week segments. So, here we go. Number one, content idea based on what inspires you about your business. So, why are you doing what you're doing? What do you like about that? What inspires you about that? Um, for me, it's that everybody has this natural birthright of voice. Everybody has it, right? I mean, not, I mean, I always think not everybody, there's got to be mute people in the world, right? But if there's a different kind of voice, that's just, the energy will never, that doesn't, it's just a different kind. It just looks different. But it's the same function. That energy is being voiced and vibrated out into the world because they are here, even if they never say a word, right? So, what inspires you about your business is mine is that people can tap into that energy if they're for themselves. They don't they don't need to go buy anything, not even my work, but I hope you do. but but you when you are realize that you come with all the things that you need, um, that that's huge. That's democracy, you know, in my mind. Democracy, maybe not democracy, right? Socialism. I don't know. But to me, that's a democratic, it's an equal distribution. Maybe I should just keep it that way. Equal distribution of what we come with, which is our energy. Equally for everybody. Everybody comes with energy that is pure potential and meant to serve, right? In a way that feels good, not in a way that's taxing and onerous. Number two, the second content idea. How are you helping others see their big vision or their next step. I like to do both. I don't know. I can't pick. So big vision, I help people recognize their astrology. I help people tap into the power of astrology. So that's the big vision part. I put it backwards in the answer. The big vision part is being able to tap into your astrology, not so it can tell you who you are, but have an experience of how you've experienced the energy, or call on the experience of how you experienced the energy. And so that you can recognize it and move with it, like I like to do. And then recognizing how energy moves in creative cycles. So that's how I help them see their next step. What's next? What's up for them? Because if you can recognize where you are in the cycle, then you can know how the energy is moving into what's next. And then you can see what works for you, what has been beneficial, what feels good about that for you. Okay. So those are the second content ideas. They make some content based on that answer. And number three is, what is an example of inertia for your clients? And then you can also say, what is their example of determination? What does it look like when your clients have fallen into inertia around what you're helping them with? So if they're just stagnant, they're not moving, and they can't find a way out, and they can't see a way out, nothing makes sense, right? And you're their punch out of the inertia, right? So what is that? So for me, inertia is, for them, it looks like they're too afraid. So my clients are too afraid to do much of anything, create things because they're worried about criticism, show up for things because they don't want to deal with bad energy, to speak up and use their voice, or to even admit that they're afraid to use their voice. So I have a lot of people, especially a lot of extroverts, that are afraid to admit that there's a large fear around their voice. Just because they can use it doesn't mean that they're not scared. And afraid to be their full selves. So that's more the truth of it, is that a lot of people are just afraid to share who they really are. And so they may be using their voice all day and night, but it becomes less impactful if your essential power and essence isn't in it, which is a lot of what we're talking about today. This is a vocal element of the chart. And even more so in the full moon. So when we hit the full moon in Gemini on the 15th, there's a lot of beautiful tie-ins from last month. So last month we were talking about receiving and being in the network and the web of our team and the support that looks like, and maybe removing what doesn't look like that anymore. And that receiving that transmission of inspiration. And this is about being in it, acting in it, acting in the transmission. And then this full moon in Gemini is about, how are you making that thing beautiful? How are we, because it's about how we are, our energy when we access the thing, right? So our energy when we're actually doing the work. So the Gemini is telling us what energy to do the work in. And so I think it's Shadow of Vanity and the gift of discrimination. So I don't love that name, so I've renamed it Discernment. But I can't officially because it's his work. So who am I? But that's what I call it in my house. We call it discernment, and it's that ability to take your ability to see beauty where beauty is, or where beauty can be, and then create from there, and connect from there, connect to your community from there, instead of making it a reason to be above or below the community or the people that you get to connect with. So I don't know, I just gave you a whole month rundown right there. In case you missed Bourbon Vision, which I do give a full month rundown on. And I tie these concepts together a lot more there. But again, one last time, it's the last day for Voicing Your Vision Summit to be fully accessible. All the speakers, all the things are accessible today for free. All you have to do is register or find it on YouTube. But it will be moved into preview mode after today. I give you a hint since you're here live and you're listening to me, or you've come to this video and are listening to me, that it takes me time to find how I want to edit those and move them in. So you'll have a little bit of extra time. It's just not guaranteed. I'm not guaranteed that your favorite speaker will be available after today. Okay. So get in there, dive in there, find out what you're interested in looking at first. And before it disappears, or if you find enough goodies, it's well worth the full package, y'all. You get this year's, the 2 years before, the summits, the gifts that are still available. Like if they're still available, you can still get them, right? We have a ton of great gifts this year, like out of this world gifts this year. And then also there's such opportunity to join us for the 2025 Vocal Alchemy live cohort. And it will be epic. It will be epic. I mean, I've done a lot of good courses. I mean, they've all been pretty great. This year, I'm going to start incorporating my organizational principle, which is really just an element of 4. It's an element of 4 that's helping us find those places to hang our orientation on, right? So we're not getting lost in the minutia of life, right? And that we get to live our big, full, expressive, full, big ideas, our big projects, live them out in real life. So I hope you join me. If not, I get it. Life is hard. But I'll put the link in the description, and I will see you next time.